Hotep family, Brother Rakib. Once again, welcome to a new awakening. I'm going to be doing this particular lecture today. Before I begin, let me say Assalamu alaikum to my brothers, Assalamu alaikum to my sisters, and once again, Hotep to my family. So today what I'm going to be speaking about is what we call taqwa. The word taqwa meaning is to guard, to preserve, to protect, to shield. These are the meanings of the word taqwa. This particular word is used in the Quran about 258, 59 times. And it's used in these 8 different forms. Interpolators of the Quran, those who interpolate the Quran, they try and teach, brothers and sisters, that the word taqwa means to fear Allah. And that's not what the word means. What the word means is to guard, to protect, to preserve, to shield, or to prevent something from happening to you or something. So what I want to do is I want to kind of explain the system of the language. Many of our brothers and sisters who practice what we call in Islam, one of the reasons that they don't really understand the Quran is because they don't understand the language or the system of the language. And they are pretty much just following behind people who don't know the language as well. And once you start learning the language, you'll come to realize that the translations, or I say interpolations, are just that, interpolations. Language itself has a system. Everything functions in a system. We have to understand the systems just as our ancestors did. The universe functions in a system. The earth functions in a system. The nature of it, the nature of the universe, the nature of the earth, all function in a system. And our ancestors tried to imitate or emulate the natural systems. This is the manner in which they constructed their civilizations, their cultural traditions. This is the understanding of true spirituality, when you live in accord to the natural order of things, when we begin to understand the natural functions of things, the systems in which things function. And this is what the Quran often speaks about: the fitrah of Allah, the nature of Allah, the same nature or pattern in which He created the human being on. And it says, let there be no change. No change will you find in that pattern, in that system. That's what a pattern is. It's a system in which something is designed. We say pattern. In order to understand the language, we have to understand its system of grammar. When we get a good foundation, a good grasp of history, true history, not the fabricated history or the plagiarized versions of history, but true history. And we began to learn the ancient systems, and once again began practicing those systems, the natural order of things. We'll really come into what we call spirituality. We have been so deluded in our thinking, due to the global European system of white supremacy, to the point that we can't see the natural ways of the universe or the earth itself or our own natural nature. So we don't act natural. It's like the saying when they say black people are like, crabs in a bucket. When one is trying to get out, the others pull it back down. And we never think about that statement when it is referenced to us. We never think about crabs in a bucket. They're in an unnatural environment, so they're going to do unnatural things. If you take the crabs out of the bucket and put them back into the natural environment, then they'll do what's natural. So when they say that, we don't really get it. We are, as a people, we are living in an unnatural environment. So our behaviors are going to be unnatural, based upon the natural order of things. Systems are designed for the purpose of survival. And we learn how to imitate or emulate the natural order of nature. For instance, when the human beings was first created or manifested, they learned from nature. For instance, man learned how to draw before. I can't draw, I'm just going to give you an example of what I'm saying. Man learned how to draw before he learned how to write. And man learned to draw from the footprints or the prints of things like animals. They learned certain animals had certain footprints. They could look at the prints and determine what type of animal it was. Man created the light bulbs by observing the sun. Man learned how to navigate on water, build boats, and be able to travel on water by watching the insects. How ants will pull a leaf down and get on top of the leaf and go across the water. Man learned things from nature, from the animals, from the plants, the trees, the birds, the fish. Man built a submarine because he looked at the fish, the dolphins, whales, how they would go down and then submerge and emerge. So we get our knowledge from nature. And our ancestors was, very great thinkers. They were able to, as I say, imitate and emulate the things in nature. This is where our knowledge and understanding come from. Nature, the earth, the universe was our first teacher and should still be our teacher today. But we've been in a system for over 400 and some odd years of what we call global white supremacy. And just as it is important for us to understand the natural systems, the ancient systems, we have to understand the global system of white supremacy as well. Man and mankind have created systems. Our ancestors, as I say, created the first systems, what we call civilizations. Before the Europeans ever manifested or came about, in whichever manner they came about, we know that we were here for hundreds of thousands of years before they evolved or manifested. As I say, in whatever manner they did. That's not going to be what I'm going to be dealing with, how they came about, why they came about. I'm going to deal with the issue of them being here and the system in which they have designed that have boxed us in where we no longer function from a natural system anymore. In the system, we have laws, economics, we have educational systems. We have these systems. We have in this system religion. We have these different systems in which the Europeans controlled. Europeans control these particular systems. And the idea is to conquer. That's the whole idea, to conquer and control. In these systems, would be natural. It's natural to have laws, rules, to keep balance, equality. You have to have economics. You have to have some form of trading, labor. That's a system. You have to have some type of spiritual system, some type of educational system. You have to have these systems. But the thing about white supremacy in its system its system functions off of undermining or controlling or not sharing or no equality for non-white people. This is the tragedy of this system. But we have to understand why. Why is this? We say it's due to racism, but it's bigger than racism. The European system is designed to not wipe them out. The European is only 1/10 of the world population. 1/10. Genetically, they are inferior. When we learn that we are 9/10 of the world population, and genetically we are dominant. If you have the admixing, a white guy marry a black woman, the children are going to be dark or from the dominant genes. So in that understanding, and believe me when I say the educated, the learned among Europeans realize that. When the Europeans began their conquests, going around the world, everywhere they went, they found black people. Everywhere they went, they found black people. No matter where they went around the world, wherever they landed, during that era, they found black people. And they realized they were a small minority. And they realized, they came as they began mixing and taking the women and so forth, and the children being born dark, kinky hair. They realized that they could be annihilated. Say for instance, where they were, because they were only in Europe. They were only in Europe. They were only in one place. And we were all around the world. They were only in one place. Imagine all of these people going there and admixing. It would have eliminated them. It would have eliminated their existence. So they understand that. So everything that they're doing to maintain their existence. We think that it was all based on economics, it was all based on prejudice, racism. No, the bigger picture, it was based on not being annihilated. In the early history, in the 50s, the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, when we began having these black power movements, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. When we was seeking respect, when we was seeking rights. We didn't think how the Europeans thought about that. That was very dangerous to the European. Self-respect, pride, equality. That's a dangerous concept to such a small fraction of people, to allow all of these people equality, self-respect, dignity, pride. You know what I'm saying? Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Black is beautiful. We don't realize how dangerous that is to the European. In his small fraction of numbers, knowing, hey, you give them freedom, you let them start marrying in, and you give them equal rights, the danger to that. When those movements came about, what we didn't catch was all of the movies that started coming out at that time. During that particular period, they start putting out movies. And you have to know, even though black people played in the movies, black people didn't write or produce the movies. They start coming out with Superfly, all of these movies that was derogatory to the conscious movement that was being made. It's like every time we get together and we start doing something conscious that's going to bring that self-respect, that dignity, they come with something to alter it, to elude us away from that. It's like when we was wearing the dashikis and the fros, they came with the Jerry curls. I know we think we came with the Jerry curls. We didn't. We didn't put the Superfly movie out. We didn't put movies out calling each other niggas. These were promoted by Europeans. These movies were, hey, we start calling our sisters bitches and hoes and everything derogatory. We didn't promote that. We have to know who's behind the entertainment. We have to realize that. These are things we have to be conscious of. Now, I'm not getting away from the subject of taqwa. I'm going to bring that back to play here in just a moment. But I have to get you to understand the importance of taqwa as it is in its meaning of safety, of guarding yourself, of preserving, protecting and shielding yourself. You have to know what to guard, protect, and shield yourself from. So, I want to give you an example of something. Taqwa is a God consciousness. When we say God conscious, we have to realize we have no understanding of what God is outside of ourselves. The only God that we can ever know is the God within. It is that human spirit within you that tells you when you do something wrong. That tells you, oh man, I shouldn't have did that. I mean, I need to go apologize. You have to have something that you relate God consciousness to. God consciousness to our ancestors was in their writings of Ma'at, justice, balance, equality, all of the things that is human, that is moral, that is civilized, that is based on being honest, having integrity. We have to realize that. It is the Europeans have us looking outside of ourselves, looking at the illusions. We have to realize that the life of this world is only an illusion. And to look for yourself or look for God outside of yourself is only to project that illusion. The Quran, the Bible, all say the kingdom of heaven is within. The Quran says, call to mind your sustainer in your own self. In the Bible, Christ says what? The kingdom of heaven is within you. So we have to start looking inside of ourselves when we think God conscious. It has to be that moral, that righteous voice that speaks to us when we're in our right mind. Not when we're in our slave mind. We can't relate scripture to proper history because it's been blacked out through whitewash. We don't know our history, our true history. The European blacked out our history, whitewashed it. And they started early with us, and we don't catch it. So I want to give you an example of what I mean. I'm going to put a word on the board. The word is prehistoric. The word history is in the word. I see suffix mean study of, the study of something. It's a science. You study the patterns, the systems of something. That's what science is. When we say prehistory or prehistoric, the first idea we get is that of a caveman or a dinosaur. These cavemen running around with these clubs, fighting dinosaurs, and we know that's propaganda. We know that's fabricated. Today we know that. At one point in time we didn't, because our languages, our history, our spiritual systems have all been taken away from us. We don't understand the effects of over 150 years of being colonized. When a people is colonized, that means to be colonized means to be stripped. To be stripped of everything that makes you up, meaning your language, your dress, your memory of your history, your memory of your forefathers, your ancestors, your culture, your traditions, your rites of passage, all of the things that make you up. And to be given something that is foreign to you and try to make you accept that and be that. This was the process, not allowing our great-grandmothers, great-great-great-grandmothers to speak their own language, to practice their own spirituality, or what we call worship, or what we call religion. To not allow that and not allow it to be passed down to their kids. So everything that made us who we were taken away from us. And when we understand that, we should realize that we're no longer our true self. We are the imitation of someone else. And that's very important to be conscious of. So everything we're talking about taqwa, we're talking about God conscious. We're talking about what? To be able to guard something, to be able to protect something, to be able to preserve something, to be able to shield something, to be able to prevent something from happening to you. Well, there was a period of time for some generations where everything that made us who we were as a people were taken from us. So we are just now at a time where we are trying to reestablish that. So you see on all of these platforms about ancient Kemet, ancient Nubia, our true history is being uncovered. And we tip our hat to our master teachers, our elders, those who have transitioned on, the Sheikh Anta Diop's, the Dr. Africa, the Francis Westland, Dr. Benz, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, all of the brothers and sisters, all of the brothers and sisters who dedicated their lives to reestablish us to the people who we truly are. And we have to take advantage of that and not let their work, their things that they were dedicated to do for our benefit, go unheard or unnoticed or not be acknowledged. That would be a shame for us to do. So, saying that, I just wanted you to be on point with my perspectives. This is my perspective I'm giving you. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some examples of the Quran on how we're not able to be taqwa when we don't even have a foundation to start from. When I say a foundation, I mean a historical foundation to relate the message of the Quran to. Because it is misinformation when you relate it to the Middle Eastern Arabs. That is a misrepresentation. That is misinformation, because the Quran has nothing to do with the Middle Eastern so-called Arabs. It has nothing to do with them. The scripture deals with the ancient Africans. And all we have to do is use logical thinking, rational thinking. When the scripture talks about the first creation of the human beings, and we know that we were the first human beings on the earth for hundreds of thousands of years, we have to know that cannot be in reference to nobody but us. So when the scripture talks about Adam and the children of Adam, that has to be us. We were the only people for hundreds of thousands of years. No other people existed. So it'd have to be us. So we have to be able to relate the ayats in the Quran as well as the Bible to ancient African history. And when it talks about historical events, historical people. And when we realize that the Bible and the Quran gets its origins, the information that we are reading come from our ancestors. So, here's an example in the Quran when it says, ذَلِكَ al-kitab. It says, ذَلِكَ al-kitab. It goes on to say, La Rayba. Fihi Hudan lil muttaqin. And I want to show you how they interpolate, not translate, and through interpolation, they throw you off. And they make you think that the scripture is speaking about them or to them and not about you, meaning our ancestors, and we are of our ancestors. So you have to understand the system of language. Here we have dhalika, this word. This word is a demonstrative. What we call it, a demonstrative pronoun. And this pronoun, this demonstrative pronoun, is very important to understand in this ayah, because it's going to give clarity to what I'm telling you. Now, you can ask, for you brothers and sisters who want to run back to your scholars or imams, take this back to them. It's a demonstrative for something at a distance. It's a distance demonstrative. It deals with something at a distance in time or in place, or in time and place. But it deals with something that is at distance, meaning far off. Not like, here in Texas, way in California, it's talking about in time. Far off in time and far off at a place. So when it says Dhalika al-Kitabu, and this is the subject, that tells you it's the subject. It's a noun. The Dhamma lets us know it's the subject in a sentence. Very important for us to understand. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ. Demonstrative pronoun pointing to something at a distance, something that is far off, either in time or place. So, we know it doesn't say what the interpolators say when they say, this is the book. They say, this is the book on this demonstrative. In the Arabiya, the demonstrative for something near, when you're pointing to something close to you, to say this, meaning something in the present, in time, in place. The word is hadar. It is the Arabic word hadar. That is the demonstrative for something near in time and place. It doesn't use hadar, it uses dhalika, something distant. So it's not talking about the Quran as he interpolates. But they want us to think it's talking about the Quran, and it's not. And they do this often. And if you don't understand it, it's going to elude you or make you think it's in reference to this book. Also, we have to know that in this surah, which is 2, surah 2, verse 2, or chapter 2, verse 2, which was originally the 87th verse, placed at number 2. The Quran had not even been compiled to a book. You know that the Quran was never compiled into a book form until some time after the Nabi Muhammad alayhi wasallam. It wasn't even compiled. The Prophet was not alive when the Quran was compiled. I know they try and sneak that in there and say, but that's not true. So we're talking about something at a distance. And we know in that time, in which we're talking about 1400 and some odd years ago, they didn't use the word book. The ancestors used terms in which we would call today as manuscripts. Scripts, manuscripts, writings. So it says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is very important ayah to understand with clarity. Negative, no doubt in it, a guide, lil muttaqin. It is the word taqwa, or the root word wakar. But here it's in this form. We call it the 8th verb stem active participle. Now, what's important to understand is the verb stem on this word, taqwa or wakar. Wakar is the root word. In this verb stem, the 8th stem means to do something for yourself. We have to be able to relate the ayahs in the Quran to history, not to present day and time, when it's talking about something historical. And this is a historical ayat. So, I want to read the ayat to you. I'm going to read what has been interpolated first, and then I'll translate it. He say, this is the book, and it is guidance without doubt to those who fear Allah. Now, the word Allah is not even in the ayat. But, as I say, they want you to think the word taqwa means fear Allah. You can look in any Arabic dictionary, any Arabic lexicon or concordance, and look up the word wakar. It does not mean fear. Look it up for those of you who can look it up, or you can even just Google a word on Google and just Google TAQWA and ask for the definition. So just type in, what does TAQWA mean in Arabic? And when you look it up, don't read what's in parentheses, what's in the little boxes. You know, that's interpretation. That's somebody's opinion. Just look up the meaning of the word. It means to guard, to protect, to preserve, to shield, to prevent. Those are the definitions it's going to give you to the word. When we say God conscious, as I said earlier, you have to have a perspective when you say God or when you say Allah. You have to be able to relate it to something. Anything we think of, we have to relate it to. That's just human nature, you know. And when our ancestors say that man is God, that is a concept that which is within man is divine. That which resides within man is divine. That is the concept of saying man is God. Not the flesh, the skin, but that which resides within man, as the Quran says, when it says nafakatu fihi min ruhi, and the Creator placed the soul of the Creator in the human being in which was created. Every now and then I get caught up and say he. We know that the Creator is not a he. That's the European machoism trying to put themselves in the place of the Creator. And we get caught up in that, you know, when they say, Kulhu, Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad, say he is Allah. Say he is the one and only. You know, they give that he, that masculinity. And we don't even realize that we're committing shirk. We just follow behind things without akal, thinking, using our intellect. But here, as I say, the word mutakin is the eighth verb stem. The eighth verb stem means to do for self. Now I was reading it. As it says, to those who fear Allah. Now, the word don't mean fear. The word means to protect. It's in the eighth verb stem, means doing something for yourself. Meaning those who take the manuscripts, take the ancient writings, and you use them and you preserve them. You shield yourself